right, man. Charlie, that's right.
There's always just that active red light defending. I think it's like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Man. Come on, Ian. As the big man just said there, people deluded, I'm back again. Special guest settings. It's not every day we are creating the presence of the Athletics' very own. You know, when he's not interviewing footballers and making great articles, he's blessing us YouTubers, man. I had to do it, man. My good friend, Mr. Art de Roché.
Oh my God. Every time I knew it was going to happen, but it really is funny. So, I can't really say anything, but I hope you had a good Christmas. I hope you had a good
Happy New Year as well,
New
man.
Year. And yeah, thanks for having me again.
I'd say the key question for this year, what hairstyles we going with, man? Is it a Reece Nelson thing? What is it, man?
At the minute, I don't know. I've just pulled it back in a little ponytail for now. I haven't been to the hairdressers in a while, so yeah, I need to go and check out some styles.
When you're gonna have enough, man? Because I remember when I cut my hair, I just couldn't take it anymore, man. The washing it, the taking out the plaits, the whole maintenance around it. How have you still got the heart for it, man?
Well, that even today, like a couple of hours ago, I had to like properly get the conditioner out and everything.
You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, I just feel like I don't know what your opinion is, but I just know the second I got rid of it, I'd probably regret doing that.
You know what it is? For me, it was like, well, I cut my hair when I was 18. I just had enough, man. I just honestly had enough. I do want it back, though. It'd be nice to swing it and stuff. Why are you doing the Benjamin White, Bukayo Saka inspired blonde settings, man?
No, that's not for me. That's not for me. Never that.
Oh, man. But banter aside, as I said, man, Happy New Year's to you and your loved ones. Hope everybody's blessed. Taking a smile off your face, we have to address the elephant in the room now. Like, it's not really been happy for us Arsenal fans. What have you made of our recent run of games, or better yet, our recent form of December and at present what's carried us into January, my friend?
Yeah, definitely not anything to smile about. I think what's been most frustrating for me watching games, so I was at the West Ham game and the Fulham game. Both games I felt Arsenal started well. And you can add the Liverpool game to that as well.
Yeah.
And it just seems like they almost forgot how to play in a way. What kind of struck me was just there was a lot more time being taken to make decisions. And once that starts happening, everything just gets a lot slower. So for me, that's been my, I guess, biggest gripe of the last few games is things becoming a lot more pedestrian than they should be, and that's really cost Arsenal, I feel.
Do you think that's a psychological thing? Because, like, as we both played football, we both watch football. A lot of it is obviously Mikel Arteta. It's a lot of it's training and replicating what you've done on the training field. But a lot of it is replicated, if that's even a word, replicated to the point where it's like six, 7 cents. Like, it's just, you're just doing it off the cuff. And I do think more so last season and for large parts this season, it's almost like our players haven't thought about it. I have felt, to what you're saying, it's a bit pedestrian. They have looked a bit unsure. I do think, psychologically, we're struggling in front of goal. I think players are thinking about things too much. I don't know how you feel. Do you think a lot of it is psychological?
It could be, because when we put it to Arteta after the Fulham game.
See what I'm saying, people? Man just said we pull it to Arteta and that. Like, we don't get these kind of things, but go on. We're in greatness, folks.
It was like, is it a fatigue thing? And is that fatigue mental or physical? And he couldn't really put a finger on it. I'm not sure if that was him not wanting to answer the question or him being truthful. But there's definitely something there where it's just not clicking as it was last season. And personally, I wouldn't be surprised if it's also physical when you look at just how much football has been played, even factoring in the World Cup last year. I know everyone might think that was a year ago. Why are you bringing it up now? But it all kind of accumulates. So I wouldn't say that is just a random point. I would say these guys have been going at it for ages. So it wouldn't be totally out of the realms of possibility that at one point in time, it just takes them a bit more effort, both mentally and physically, to do things that, as you said beforehand, were just almost automatically there,
Yeah.
where you don't have to really think about it that much.
In terms of us not scoring goals, then, because I agree with everything you said, I do think it's a bit of mental fatigue and psychological issues. I do think there's been a lot of build up in games. How much of it do you put down to simply put just not having a clinical bagsman? Like, I have to ask the difficult question.
No. It is a good point, because when you look at the Liverpool game, that is the biggest example from the three. Arsenal should have been 3 or 4-0 up before
First 10
Liverpool.
minutes. Your South London boy Reece Nelson should have bagged. I told you about the South London talent.
No, but it is true. Like, it should have been 2, 3, 4-0. So yeah, I do think that is part of it as well, because when we talk about decision making as well, that comes under that umbrella, if you want to call it. That you look at the Nelson chance, the Havertz chance as well.
Even Saka, if I'm honest, where he should have squared it, I think, to Nketiah. I can't be sure.
Yeah. So there are a lot of moments where the wrong decision has been taken. Does that come down to them being a bit feeling rushed maybe in situations? I'm not sure. But one thing that's kind of stuck in my head from when Arteta was asked about Martinelli, and he was asked whether it was a confidence issue. This was before the West Ham game, or it might even been before.
Speaks
Liverpool
to Arteta so much you don't even remember.
No. But anyway, he was asked whether it was a confidence thing with Martinelli, and he said he didn't think so. The first thing that actually came out of his mouth was he needs to be open. A lot of these guys haven't been open, but Liverpool was an instance where a lot of them were. So I don't know whether it's just a thing of you're in the position. Is your mind clear enough to take that chance? That's something only the guys in those positions can answer.
What have you made of Saka and Martinelli's form? Because for me personally, I think it's a mixture of things. I think it's, when we look under the lens of, Mikel Arteta, a young manager, young other people off the field, young team all growing together and things like that. I do think there's going to be bumps and bruises. If we look at the lens of winning the Premier League, I do think it's a bit naive to place the expectation on those two young players, especially Bukayo Saka, who, for the last 2, maybe even 3 years, has just been pulling us through the mud. So he's due a kind of spell of results, really and truly, where he's not really doing the business, really. And even then, there was a time where Saka wasn't necessarily playing well, but he's getting the assists and the goals and he's making the difference. What have you made of those two players?
Yeah, I guess we'll start with Saka because he's the main guy. I feel like if we go from the start of the season, I don't think the Thomas Partey, Ben White experiment helped him, because he was getting the ball very quickly, and then it was almost like double team, triple team against him. So I don't think that
next week.
Yeah, I don't think that helped at that stage of the season, but you saw he was still able to just get through it in terms of, okay, if he's able to get a couple yards of space, he'll whip it across the back post.
And to be fair, he's been carrying an Achilles injury as well. I have to put that out there.
Yeah. But I think in the last few weeks, it's just been a bit, you've seen maybe just more doubt rather than, okay, I'm getting the ball and I'm taking the man on. I think there's more thought being had, which you don't really need from your wingers, I'd say. Because Fulham game, for those who don't know, the press box is basically, it was right next to the right wing.
We don't know. Explain this to us. We don't know. We're just mere mortals, my friend.
So for the first half, he was in front of the press box, basically. Defensively, the one thing that stuck out in that game was Fulham targeted that side 4 times, I think, before they scored the equalizer.
Facts.
But from an attacking standpoint, with that in mind, Saka tried to stay out wide more often. The one time he did actually drift inside, Fulham got the ball back and put the ball back in that side straight away. So I think there's almost an element of, if I do move around too much,
I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't.
yeah, what's going to happen? But I just feel like he has to just say F it in a way and just try.
What shall be, yeah.
That's what he was doing throughout his time in the last few seasons. And I just think, yeah, a bit too much thought is going into his actions. Just play off the cuff, and you'll probably do fine. With Martinelli, it's a bit trickier because I feel obviously there was a point in the season where he was kind of in and out with Trossard, and that statement Arteta made about him needing to be open is valid, but also I just don't think he's been as clinical as he was last year. You think of the chance at Liverpool where he comes inside and just swipes it wide. It is just wide, but it's wide.
There's been a couple of open goals as well, which, to be fair, was there last season.
Yeah, so
well,
I think it may just be a case of these guys are 22 years old and we're going to experience something like this. But what I would also say is there has to be courage to when these, I guess, instances happen, trust someone else for a little while. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why you asked me to jump on, because I may have written something along these lines. And I'm sure we'll get into that issue soon. But it does feel like if the players are there and you can afford to maybe try something different, then do it.
I think you're bang on the money. I think the key point you made about, to be fair, I do think, playing devil's advocate against my own opinion, if you're old enough to play and we're doing this youngster project, it is a bit redundant to talk about your age because you're good enough. But I do think we need to give them scope to be volatile, especially more so Martinelli, because I think clearly Saka's a bit more ahead of his development. I think Martinelli we spoke in August and I said that I wouldn't be surprised if Martinelli gets the goals he got last season, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't, because that's your first kind of year. And it comes with the expectation. I do think Martinelli needs to get his head up, probably be a bit more one-dimensional. I wouldn't say he's got weaker, but I feel he was a bit more tenacious last season. It's kind of a bit easier. And I think everybody's struggling psychologically. I do think he's missing Granit Xhaka. I do think with Zinchenko's inconsistencies and just our left-hand side, that's a bit of an issue as well. Go on.
On that as well, I remember feeling in that first half against Fulham, people may say I'm wrong, but this was just what I felt at the time. I felt that Fulham first half was his best performance in a while.
Yeah, he was inspired, man.
Because he just played. He went around the outside when he wanted to. He went on the inside when he wanted to. And he didn't take too much time. I know that criticism about him needing to get his head up, it is a fair one, because there are moments where you can sense, okay, if the attacker's a bit more, I guess, aligned, then moves can be probably finished in a better way. But he's also a player who works off instinct, so you want him
resilience.
You want him to be in those situations a lot more. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously, he was bright as well when he came on against Liverpool, against Trent mostly. But yeah, I think it's one where you need to see, I guess, the pack shuffled a little bit as well, a bit more.
I agree with you. Form is temporary, class is permanent. I've got no doubt Martinelli will be back there. I did think for parts of this season, a bit redundant now because Jesus is somewhat, I know he's injured at the moment in training, but I did think he kind of missed him. I do think tactically we're a bit stuck in that. Obviously, we spoke about for a variety of factors why we're not putting the ball in the back of the net. I wouldn't say our fullbacks aren't offering us enough, but I don't feel our fullbacks are offering enough in an attacking sense. I feel in comparison to last season, I don't think Saka and Martinelli are running in behind and getting onto the ball where they're going to be dangerous. Martinelli's quite isolated out wide. Saka typically is dropping deep, and there's only so many times you can dance past 10 or so players in it. I think I think our midfield has been great in it, in the sense of I think Havertz has somewhat settled. Declan Rice is amazing. And I think because of the form, nobody's really given Odegaard his flowers. But I think something is kind of missing. And I do think Gabriel, Saliba, and Declan Rice in particular, they're having to attempt to break the lines a bit more than I would have liked. So I think there's a lot Mikel Arteta needs to arrest. And I think you set this up perfectly, because when I look at someone like Reece Nelson, I don't know how you feel, but over the last few weeks, I've casted my mind back to the summer, and I know we brought in Declan Rice, we got Timber, we had to get Raya on loan, which is kind of a key point to the point I'm going to make. And obviously we got Kai Havertz. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel with the spending we did in the summer and in the build up to that, maybe we was quote unquote closer to FFP regulations or whatever is the range now than League B, because I think Balogun obviously made clear he wants to leave and play first team football, but I think that was a chance to bring some finances in. I think the club would have loved to have bring in a striker or a winger, but I think we wasn't able to. So I think that was an added caveat on keeping Reece Nelson. And I think Reece Nelson is clearly loved by the club. He loves the club. Arteta likes him. The fans like him. But kind of what you said, the fact that he's played 87 minutes says it all. And with Martinelli and Saka, for me, kind of like how Martinelli was on the bench against Liverpool initially, I think one of them, probably more so Martinelli, kind of need to be taken. I know I'd love it to be Saka, taken out the firing line, recharge mentally, and then come off the bench again rather than this over-reliance, which is why I'm not assuming Arteta doesn't trust Reece Nelson or whatever, but you know, the minutes all the other attackers have played to Reece Nelson, he's played 87 Premier League minutes, and how many of that has been staggered throughout the games? I kind of want Arteta to kind of get a wide man where I'm not saying you don't trust Reece Nelson, but trust him to take the burden off them. Where are you at with the Halem boys as well? Because, you know, Mikel Arteta ain't really been giving debuts. Our boy Smith Rowe, we can get he's at the club. Nelson's kind of here, there, and everywhere. Eddie's on the peripheral of things. Not that I'm getting at Arteta for Eddie, but yeah, you made an article about it. Check that out, folks, and it'll be in the description. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, so the reason for the piece is because it is definitely an issue that I guess the best way to say it is people are taking notice of. And when I say people, not just fans. And I feel like the important crux of it is that not just the now, but what is the knock-on effect of that.
Tell our young players, if anything.
Exactly. So that is where I guess the piece was, I guess, born out of, not to kind of, I guess, have a go or anything like that.
No, it's just being honest. There's not been too many debuts. I know Sego Jr. started and Ethan last season, but we got to be honest. All them guys have been on the bench. How many have come up? And I'm not criticizing Arteta for not necessarily playing all of these guys as much as I would like to see it.
Yeah, I'm just saying that because I know a lot of people have differing opinions on it.
You're not going to save them, mate. You know how it is. You know how it is.
But yeah, if we start from, I guess, just most senior and work our way down, you've obviously got Reece Nelson, who we're talking about now, who signed in the summer, new contract, obviously not just signed. And I feel like he's one where we've almost been having the same conversation for about a year, almost 18 months even.
I think you're being kind, maybe even a bit longer than that.
Really. Yeah, maybe if you want to.
I agree.
But I'm just looking at since he's been back from Feyenoord, the time where he got his chance was when Saka came off injured against Nottingham Forest. He scored twice, and since then, really, he's looked bright whenever he's played. But he's only really played at most for about 20 minutes a game.
Most probably 45 hour he got against Liverpool. You're bang on the money.
And then this season, the only games he started have been in the Carabao Cup and then the final match day of the Champions League, which, when you look at it, isn't really encouraging, especially when you think about how when I've asked Arteta about him, when I've asked Arteta about Smith Rowe, he's been very positive about both of them. I think the big thing is the actions need to marry up with those words.
It's like a relationship, isn't it? You can tell a woman all the stuff you want. You need to deliver, in it, really and truly.
So that's where I was coming from in that sense, because as we've spoken about, it has felt that there are times where he could have maybe got a lot more minutes than he has done, whether it be off the bench or from the start of games. And I know Mikel Arteta's big thing, whenever he's been asked about how often Saka plays, for instance, is the best players have to play,
which I don't think is wrong. Yeah,
X amount of games a week or whatever. And he does have a point, but is it the healthiest thing to do? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure I agree.
Even when my man's limping, Arteta's like a tough guy, didn't he? He don't care about none of that.
But also a part of it is Saka will want to be playing in those games.
Yes.
Like the Champions League games, you see when Messi was at Barcelona, for instance, he's playing the Champions League games.
Yeah, the big players want to play everything. That's where I think people are not fair to the manager, because I think these players are banging on the door regardless of the cups that we're in and saying, Gaffer, I want to play, which
exactly
fair enough.
So there are always there's always more than one side to the story. Then with Smith Rowe, I think that's more probably one where it's just unfortunate timing, because just based on conversations I've had, the start against Sheffield United was on merit. It wasn't just kind of a charity start.
Yeah, he earned it.
And then he actually hurt himself during the first half of that game. There was a moment, I'm not sure if people remember, where he kind of receives the ball and he's got a player on his back and he has to really kind of fight to win it back. There was just a little touch he got in that kind of tackle, which set him back a few weeks. Wasn't major. And then after just a couple of days training, he was back on the pitch against PSV, encouraging, you think, but then the next week he only gets two or so minutes against Brighton, doesn't play at Anfield, which is understandable. Then Kai Havertz is suspended against West Ham. You feel like that's the perfect.
This is it. We're off.
The perfect opportunity to get him back in the fold from the start. Okay, Trossard starts. That's fine. Trossard stinks it out for 45 minutes. I've spoken on here about how much I like Trossard, but he played terribly against West Ham. I personally thought Smith Rowe could have come on at half time. Didn't come on until 78 minutes.
I would have got him on against Fulham as well. I'm jumping ahead a bit because it's like that Fulham game. It was in the pockets. I thought Smith Rowe needs to come on. Whether it's off the left, off the 10, or I know Havertz looks fairly settled in the 8. It's Smith Rowe season, man. And that's what I mean. I'm not saying Arteta don't trust them, because I understand it. Like, you know, you're going to put the best team out. We're not here to give charity. The collective comes first. But I'm not saying Arteta doesn't trust him or his squad, but this is where I want to see a bit more of a trust in. And you know me, I'm a big fan of Smith Rowe. He's got the number 10. He was here in the trenches when before it was lit and Declan Rice was here. He was carrying this club with his low socks and the tiny shin pads. We need him back, man. We need him back. Man. Go on, man.
Yeah, so I think the main thing is just from our standpoint, it does look strange that opportunities seem to be there and they're not being given. So that's, I guess, the senior guys, the guys that have been around for 4 or 5 years. When they can't get a look in, what is that really saying to the guys further down the pecking order?
Yeah, the little ones, yeah.
And I know I'm not really going to include Ethan Wanieri or Miles Lewis-Skelly in that, because they're 16 and 17 years old.
Happy you didn't say that, because I was thinking that as well. We can kind of allow it for a sec, even though they could have got minutes when they didn't come on in the Champions League. I think who did we batter in the Champions League at the Emirates? I was there. Huh?
Lons.
Yeah, we battered someone, and Arteta was like, "Nah, you're not coming on." I see them warming up. From I saw that, I knew you weren't coming on at PSV away. So I kind of get it, but then I look at it like I understand it. Like, there's never, especially for the younger players, there's never an ideal time, and a lot of the fans
that's the point.
Exactly, and a lot of fans that, quite frankly, are waffling about, play all these kids when they come on and they make these mistakes, they're not going to show. I'm not saying how they're going to, but you need to give them that kind of scope. I must admit, I would like to see Waters kind of introduced in some capacity, just because he fixes something going. Yeah,
so that's where I was going in terms of, okay, Wanieri and Lewis-Skelly get it. They're kids still. Waters, Cozier, Dewberry.
Say your piece on Cozier Dewberry before I take the stand.
Well, no, it's both of them. It's both of them, really.
It's both of them. Both of them 18, is documented. It's documented.
18 and 19 years old. On the table. 6 months left. Is 5 minutes here or there gonna really convince them? I
It
don't know.
might do a lot. Like
No.
Koza Dewberry, I know for a fact. Anderlecht, Dortmund, all of these teams are looking at you. The contract's been there for a while. I'm not saying he's not going to sign it or sign it, but I do think for these like the younger players, I'm not saying Koza Dewberry necessarily, but I still think they're under this guise of a bit what I feel Nelson's going over. Like you're just happy to be at Arsenal. I'm not saying it's right or wrong to leave Arsenal, but I think when you kind of pull that back, that's where you've got to. Like Waters, I think there's an opportunity there. But I understand the reluctance in theory to not play defenders because you'd rather people make mistakes in the final third. And I'm not saying Koza Dewberry is going to be amazing. I don't quite buy into the next Bukayo Saka thing. It's not really helpful. But give these guys little minutes because especially when we're in this kind of run that we're in, they're a bit naive. They might not be able to not necessarily comprehend, but comprehend our form. It might just be, wow, I'm playing for Arsenal. I might not get this chance again, really. And, you know, I understand the frustrations from fans.
It's the kind of, I guess, ignorance is bliss, especially with young players. They don't have fear, really, unless they're a bit nervous. And the wider point, I can't remember if I made this point in the piece because there was so much I could have said that I didn't. But when you look at the point we brought up at the start of this conversation about mental and physical fatigue, William Saliba and Gabriel, they're playing almost every minute in the Champions League as well. And then you look at the Fulham game when he's dragging back Harry Wilson. I remember looking at the camera, it panned to Saliba's face and he just looked so tired.
Knackered, didn't it? Yeah, knackered. Even Declan Rice in that game looked knackered.
So it's about not just, giving young players opportunities, but managing the guys who are starting every game as well. How are you, I guess, getting them through the season? Because if they're playing every minute, and obviously this little break in January is going to be helpful for all of them, but you could see the tiredness there against Fulham. So it's a lot of things that kind of go into this discussion. It's not just play the kids, like that's not it.
Gooners and all of that stuff. Yeah,
that's not where that is coming from. It's more about all those things kind of put into that pot, basically.
And that's where I kind of like, I'm not calling Mikel Arteta naive. I think everybody's got a healthy bit of naivety. I actually think arrogance and stubbornness and naivety, you need that in any job. You need a bit of an ego in a weird kind of way. And I don't think Arteta strikes me as someone very methodical. He's not just slapdash things. He's shown with difficult decisions that he's made. He's obviously got things wrong. But in the same way I praise him for how he's assembled the squad, it's a bit reactionary. But can it be a bit naive then? Because obviously, you know, Partey and Tomiyasu and Zinni and even Nelson, these players pick up injuries. I don't think we've addressed what we need to in the middle of the park. Yeah, I think it's a thing where we've gone from earlier in the season, we weren't really creating, regardless of the goals we had. Now we're creating and no one's putting it in the back of the net, which the players need to go and do. But there's not a proven pedigree goal scorer there. As you kind of said, you know, where you know, Timber's been injured, yes, but Gabriel Saliba, probably even Benjamin White as well, they're being kind of ran into the ground. Is it a bit naive how we've assembled the squad then to the point where there's over-reliance on certain individuals? I know it's a difficult one, but I've got to jump advocate.
So I think, and this isn't like me like taking your point a certain way. I'm just talking about the general discussion of it. I think it's a bit easy to say that because nobody can plan for Timber having a 9-month injury.
I mean, ain't we seen Arsenal be devil's advocate again? Ain't we seen this injury theme? I hear you with the Timber thing. Yeah.
No, but that's just where I'm coming from it. Because I feel like, okay, Tomiyasu, you can understand. Zinchenko, if Timber was fit, I can't say for certain, but I doubt he would have played at Anfield or at Villa Park.
I mean, I would hope not. I'd hope not. So when the sun's shining, you play at Anfield. No.
So yeah, that's where I guess my viewpoint on it comes from. Because I just don't feel like you can really underplay the planning of Timber.
No, you can't. ACL 50 minutes into your first Prem game, that's just rotten luck, essentially. Rotten luck. I do think there's a lot of naiveties Arteta has displayed, especially in the middle of the park. But the Timber thing, you can't make up for that. And again, you know, Tomiyasu, I think this is where fans need to understand it's a squad thing, because Tomiyasu was almost a forgotten figure. Now he's a key part. I would have loved to have seen when Timber and Tomiyasu were fit, where would they have played? Because you'd imagine Timber's on the left, but he could have went on the right with Saka. I don't know, but we can only deal with what's in front of us, and hopefully we can do something in the market in Jan. Are you confident about anyone in Jan?
Not really, if I'm being totally honest. Just based on conversations I've had, the vibe I get is they're quite happy with the squad, even though that sounds like crazy. I was told like the person I was talking to wouldn't be surprised if there were no ins or no outs.
I don't think we can let anyone go. We won't have 11 players.
Exactly.
Really.
So that's the thing. So yeah, that's just what conversations I've had. But obviously, we're only a third of the way through January.
And then anything can happen, man. If there was one area in January, like, you know, depending on what Arsenal fan you speak to, some might say a defensive body, a midfield body, a striker would go down like a hit at Arsenal. Obviously, we spoke indirectly about maybe having another wide option to share the workload with Saka and Martinelli. Kind of a twofold question. If you had to guess which position, if any, would be addressed, what would you go for? And if it was up to you in an ideal world where you've got the keys and FFP ain't a problem, what area or areas would you address?
Yeah, if I was to guess, I would say defensive body. My only thing with that is what's the time frame of that signing? Because you have to factor in Timber. When he comes
we're not going to
back.
get that Hatto guy, are we, in January? Which I would love for him in the summer. FM Wonder Kid, mate.
So yeah, but if it was me, if I had a magic wand, I'd probably go for a striker. That's me.
I'm with you with all of them. I think we need all of them. If it was up to me, well, what I hope the club do, obviously, anything's a bonus. I'm not holding my breath. I think we need another defensive option. I think we're really struggling at fullback, and God forbid if anything happens to our centre halves, we're in trouble. I think we need another midfielder. If I'm honest, Partey's days, quote unquote, look unnumbered. I think there's certain conditions for Jorginho. I like El Nene, but me liking you and you being a good guy ain't really good enough to be here, really and truly. So I think we could do with another midfielder. I think we could kind of, in a weird way, I think we could kind of. I feel we could get away with our attackers if we signed a defender and a midfielder, but I also feel if we didn't sign a defender or midfielder, we could kind of scumbag it with a winger and a striker, because you look at our last recent runs of performances, assuming it kind of all stayed the same, I think I'd have the same question marks. But if we score against Villa, if we bag against Newcastle, if we run away against West Ham and Liverpool, it's almost kind of like what we did at the start of the season. We'll deal with that tomorrow sort of thing. So if I'm using my brain, I want a midfielder and a defender, or at least one of them. With my heart, I'm with you with the striker and probably a wide man. And I think all of these areas need to be addressed in the summer, really and truly. If I ask you, well, in fact, before I ask you about, I mean, we're very pessimistic on these big ticket items, but I have a duty to ask you, my fans ask me to ask you, what have you made of Kyrgios? Because me personally, bro, I like him. I don't know why, but I like him. But at the same time, you don't really look cut out for this, man. You're kind of scaring me, really and truly. You was all right for a bit against Liverpool, and then Kyrgios doing.
Yeah, I get you, because last season I think he played 7 games in total. I can't remember how many of those were starts. And again, this all comes back to maybe the trust point they were talking about earlier. He probably should have been given a chance earlier, I feel, in terms of playing right-sided centre-back instead of someone.
Yeah, certain man that can't start for Crystal Palace. I don't know. He's better than Cannavaro.
And this season, opportunities have been a lot less forthcoming. In pre-season, I remember being in Germany watching
he was looking
him.
good in that inverted role, isn't it?
He was playing. He looked more comfortable doing that than Kieran Tierney, and that's not to slight Kieran Tierney. It's just to say he picked his moments well to come inside. Then he was also adding some runs off the ball in attack as well. So I was quite encouraged at that point.
I agree.
Since then, I think he's almost just been a shell of that player. Doesn't really look like he's been as confident.
Second guessing everything he does, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I personally don't know how you get that back other than playing. So yeah, I'm not sure if those opportunities will become, I guess, will come more often in the second half of the season, especially when you see it was Zinchenko starting in games where personally I felt Kivior's attributes alone would be better suited. But you do hope, I guess, that he does turn a corner, because there are definitely certain parts of his game that help Arsenal when he is playing.
Right.
His frame, he's a lot quicker than Zinchenko as well. I just think maybe if he was given those opportunities a bit earlier, maybe it would be a different conversation.
It's just a harsh one, because I agree with you about the run of games. It's a bit like with Eddie. And obviously, when we're not performing, everybody can get an opportunity. But then I always find myself saying, if I was Arteta, where's this run coming from? Win, lose, or draw? Not that I don't trust Kiwior. I'm going to put the players out there that I feel in. Zinchenko might not be doing the business in the final third and the middle third like he normally does, but at least he's got that. With Kiwior, I don't really see anything standing out. I agree with you. And I think for Kiwior, it's mainly confidence, because I think he's second guessing. He knows if Timber, Tomiyasu, and Zinchenko are fit, you're not playing. You're not getting near Gabriel and Saliba. I think it's a lot of it is that. But at the same time, I think it's easy for me to say, because I'm not playing in front of thousands of people. But I think you've got to arrest that. And, a lot of things with Kiri are just basic defending. Like, I know you're not a left back, but you're caught flat-footed a lot. You seem like a duck out of water. You're not aware of your runners and things. It's just not there. And as much as I think Kirill, the most confident I felt with Kirill was towards the end of last season when he got a run in. But then I look at, I'm not really getting at you for scoring an own goal against Liverpool, but it didn't look good. It looked like he was closing your eyes in the header. I look back to Brighton, where he's playing with his boots while the game's still going on. I'm not gonna lie, forgiving him for Sporting Lisbon away.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just might not be the guy, like you might not be the guy. Like I haven't seen enough significant progress, and I think you made a point there about how he looked in the inverted row in pre-season, and you was out there. I was watching it on TV. I agree with that. That's why I think it's a confidence thing, because a big song and dance Arsenal fans were saying is you've played in midfield for Spezia, so there was elements I thought that you were adding, and I do think at times Mikel Arteta, maybe because he realized he's not confident, was making him kind of play as a traditional kind of fullback. He weren't terrible against Luton, but he didn't do too much there. PSV got terrorized. Let's be honest. He got absolutely terrorized in the champs. And I actually think, like with the whole team, for a large part of that Liverpool game in the first half, I thought, you know what, Kirill, you're going to get confidence today. You're doing all right. And not to make him a scapegoat, I have a hard time looking at the fallout of that Liverpool game, because, yes, Kai Havertz, for example, needs to bag and should score goals, but on social media, it's all become about Kai Havertz. It's all become about Kirill, where it's the whole team. We never took our chances when we're there. And Liverpool are like John Wick. If you have the chance to kill them, you've got to take them out in it. And we never done that. And we played with fire. We got burnt, essentially.
Yeah.
Man. So
the one other thing on Kirill I'd say is the Fulham game probably is the biggest.
Oh, example. How can I forget? He rightly so hooked at halftime.
Hooked at halftime. And you saw immediately when Tomiyasu was on, it wasn't like day and night, but things were just a lot more fluid. For
he might have even known I'm not starting if Zinni doesn't pick up that knock as well, man.
Yeah, so I look at that Fulham game and I'm just like, come on, that's your chance really to properly turn things around. Hopefully, you never know, the break may do him and others a world of good. You hope that.
Need it to, mate.
Yeah, you need it.
Need it to, bro. Like, you're right.
But it's a sticky one.
Very, very, very sticky. And that's why I feel a lot of it is confidence, because I don't know Kirill, never had a conversation, but he just seems like, not that it's bad, but you haven't deep that I'm at Arsenal for a reason. It seems like he's still in awe of everything. And I can't remember the time, but I'm sure we won the Community Shield, and one of our players was like, they were kind of getting, wanted him to get a picture and things, and he wasn't. So I still think he's kind of there, where I want him to sit there and say, you know what, they've got Saliba, they've got Gabriel, but at the end of the day, I've come into this thing with a season or 2 or 3 playing in Italy. I'm a Polish international. I'm sure he played at the World Cup. I've got some qualities as well, and I hope it can, because honestly, I think, sometimes signings go wrong. If there isn't a suitable improvement, then I think we just have to eat that L. I think if Arsenal want to get to where they want to get to, I like Kiwior, I like Fabio Vieira, but if certain men are persisting in this way, that's 50 million that could have maybe been spent otherwise or utilized otherwhere. And for Kiwior, one thing I'll give him is you're clearly a good player because you're still getting interest. Interest is very different from bidding, as you know, but Napoli, AC Milan, Roma, all these teams in Italy, you're a player that one of the few players that it seems like people are forthcoming with offers, really. And I don't think we should have let Tierney go, even though I think Tierney probably said, Gaffer, I want to go. But I think one kind of thing that allowed me with that is, you know what, Kiwior looked right in the inverted role. We did have Timber them times. There is Zinni and there is Tomiyasu. So I will give Kiwior the benefit of the doubt, if I'm honest, man. Where are you at with potential, like, outgoings of Eddie Nketiah, Ramsdale, Smith Rowe, and them kind of players that have been linked with moves in Jan? Do you think they will leave? Would you let them go? Do you think we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't? We have to sell before we can buy, and we kind of have to buy before we can sell. It's a bit of a difficult situation, as you said, sticky one.
There's so many instances where Arsenal are in a catch-22.
There you have it. Yeah, exactly.
Where they're like nearly there in so many areas. And easy one there. I don't see sorry, Smith Rowe going. I don't see that.
Say that again for the haters in the back. He'll be back, man. He'll be back, man. Smith Rowe knee slides coming to a stadium near you soon.
The thing with him is, okay, end of this season, 2 years left. From his standpoint, it's kind of a healthy situation to be in. Maybe not as much for Arsenal as a club. So in the next 6 months, if Arsenal want to show him how much they love him, they have to do that through actions.
Like you said, action, man, which is the case for a few of these lads.
So yeah, that's where that is. With the others, I know like people talk about Nketiah every week, and everyone's opinion on him changes every week. Personally, I wouldn't see the logic in letting him go in January without knowing there's another body coming in a similar area, because if you let him go and you don't have something else lined up, who else is there?
There's a lot of football to be played. People can say Trossard, Martinelli, Havertz, they could all go up there, and granted, they might all be ahead of Eddie Nketiah in the pecking order. I think you're bang on the money there. I'm not gonna lie though, if there was no assurance of a striker coming in and we got 30, 40 million for Eddie, I know it's wrong, but I'm just saying I'd have a decision to make. And
to be fair, I could be wrong on that, because you mentioned, if we look at Liverpool, Havertz starts up front. Doesn't play like amazing, should be scoring goals, but he starts up front. If Eddie's out of the picture, maybe that takes Havertz away from the left 8 role. Does it open up for Smith Rowe? Like domino effects.
I reckon it'd be Jorginho like this. You're right.
So yeah, and then Ramsdale, I'm not sure on that. I can't say on that either way because I don't know.
Where you gone?
But I'd be surprised if Arsenal let that happen halfway through the season.
Ramsdale can do something, man. Like you know
what? He's probably the one player who can come away from that Liverpool game with any sort of. I don't know if credits to bigger word maybe, but I thought he played well.
I think Ramsdale played very well, and I don't know where all Arsenal fans are at, but I'm in the camp of I like Ramsdale, I like Raya. Whoever's the number one's number one. Whoever wants to leave. It seems like there's hyperinflation. I don't think Arteta anticipated that this would be a storyline, but I don't think he handled it badly, but I don't think he handled it well when he's talking about subbing goalies and things. And I think I don't think it's been healthy for Ramsdale and actually David Raya when he's had to play. And I think that could be a factor in why he's made mistakes. I do think, though, in hindsight, if we were, I don't think Raya was necessarily a signing that was needed. I'm not saying it isn't, because them small percentages could take us up a level. I think the big point over Raya and Ramsdale is that they're kind of in the same bracket. Not saying I know the keeper that would be better, but if it was a prime Van der Sar, Petr Cech, whatever, Casillas, whatever have you, I think many fans could say, you know what, even Ramsdale's own dad could say, you know what, he's better than you, mate. Like, there's nothing you could say in it. And we both knew, anyone who knows football knew that it was not sustainable to have two arguably starting number ones, pushing on playing for their country. They could talk about the Brighton example, and maybe to a degree West Ham, it was not feasible really and truly. And maybe Ramsdale's new contract was given just to kind of buffer him so that we could sell him one day. And I'm sure he's got a decision to make in the summer. You know, there's Chelsea links, Newcastle links, whatever have you. What have you made in terms of incomings though? Like, where are you at with Zubimendi and Onana first thing? I have to ask, man. Even
if we're going, if we go down the Football Manager route,
just add the edit. I'll give yourself money and then keep it moving.
Yeah,
Like,
I've got both on my Football Manager.
oh, Zubimendi asked to leave in mine. I had to let him
Is
go.
it?
He went on strike and done the interview thing. I just sent him on. I sent him on holiday for like 6 months. Every 2 weeks, like, go on holiday, go on holiday.
Yeah.
It's Jose Mourinho settings with me, man.
Yeah, but if we want to talk in real life, I'm not sure if they're as far along as reports suggest.
Yeah, this is where a lot of your journalist colleagues are earning their money with the clickbait, mate. It must be great in January.
Well, if you look at us, we haven't really spoken much because there's not really been much to speak about.
Yeah, no. You lot are the athletic. You got paid to look at you lot's articles. You lot are different.
So yeah, all I'll say on that is I don't think they're as far down the line.
Are you having Onana in real life?
Yeah, 100%. I think when I was watching Declan Rice before he came to Arsenal, so when I was like doing my research for pieces on him and stuff, Onana was the one that seemed not similar, but just
flagged up on the radar.
Yeah, in terms of just presence and
Remember his game against us last year.
Yeah, not just presence but skill as well. And I think the big, obviously the big question mark over Rice is not skill in terms of technical stuff, but being progressive like Thomas Partey has been from that 6 role. And I feel like Onana could be similar in a way. I'm not saying that because they like don't want to come off like certain people.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because you can see he's got silk in the way he moves. Thomas Partey, one thing he's really good at is being deceptive.
Drops a little body feint and keeps it moving, a little cute one,
And I've seen that with Onana. So that's why I'd probably lean a bit more towards him. But I'm not sure when that would be feasible in real life.
That's the thing. It just comes down to finances, really and truly. I do think there's a degree of interest in him. But as you know, being interested and liking a player is very different from dotting I's and crossing T's. Both teams appear, I don't want to say broke because I'm not an accountant, but it seems like Everton are struggling, Arsenal are struggling. We're both broken.
Everton struggles.
And it just seems like that's where the rumors have kind of come from. Arsenal need a midfielder. We've got an interest in Onana. That's how I'm going to get my click sort of thing. If it was out of Zubimendi and Onana, I think they're two very different kind of players. Yeah. But if I was only allowed one, bit of a Spanish bias, I'm going to go with Zubimendi if I'm honest. He's just my kind of player. What have you made of I can't even say his name, Broyo, Morayal, and the Zerki rumors, man? The two strikers, bro. I can't say his name. I tried. Like them two strikers, anyways, man. What have you made of them?
Spanish Mayoral. I guess if you're looking at a body, maybe, but
Perez 2.0, some might say.
The way Arsenal behaved in the last 2 windows, January windows, almost polar opposites. So the first one was when Aubameyang was on his way out, and it was just Lacazette. The need was striker, but they didn't sign anyone. They didn't want to just get a body in, so they waited to the summer.
Yeah, after the Blahovic thing failed, didn't it? Yeah.
At that point, they were also already interested in Jesus, so they worked on that for the summer. Then last year, you look at it, and probably more so because they were in a title race, they probably felt they needed to act. And they got plan Bs because they couldn't get their plan As. I personally feel they they still recruited well with
Well, it was a good
Trossard.
alternative in Trossard for Mudryk, even though Mudryk was the number one. I think Jorginho's been a better signing than people give him credit for all his frailties. And boy, Kyrill's Kyril, isn't it?
Yeah, and this year, I guess the other question is, sorry, my nose is a bit bunged up.
Do you think, man?
Now the question is a body okay, or do you need to actually be more considered about what you're doing?
This is where it's difficult, man. Very difficult because we need bodies, but at the same time, like, there's no point bringing in guys for no reason. But it's like, who do you bring in?
And this is why the conversation of they're kind of happy with what they've got at the minute comes up, because if you really want to go for it, you need to be. Sorry, I was about to swear. You need to be sure about who you're bringing in. So yeah, and I personally, just personal opinion, Mayoral, I'm not sure on.
Nah, I think he'll be a nice. You're not the guy, man. You're not the guy. You're not the guy. Obviously, I went live before this year. I looked at his stats. I was like, this is big up Dominic Solanke, but he had 12 goals. I was like, this is journalist. We need a striker. He's having a great sort of season. I'm sure he's probably flagged up on some sort of radar, just like Zerky, because we're looking at all different strikers, but he's not going to move the needle. Yeah, we've got a body, but not going to move the needle. What's the point? You're going to get an uptake in wages if you're coming to London. It's a myth for me. Like, I could be wrong. You could sign him and he's the great thing ever, and I'll be like, "Oh, what are you talking about? I didn't say that." But, like, it's a myth, man.
It wasn't me that said it.
Yeah, it weren't me, man. This AI. Someone hacked my YouTube channel and they're leaving mad, man. Where you at with Zerky? If I've said his name before, and Osman.
Yeah, Zerky. I'm not sure how concrete that is at the minute. That's all I'll say on that. Osimhen is pretty a solid guy. I don't think I could say much wrong about
103 million M's needed, though.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is an interesting talking point that I saw on Twitter before I came on. I can't remember who it was who was talking about it, but they said when they've seen the strikers Arsenal have been linked to, a lot of them are good at running in behind. Are they going to get those opportunities at Arsenal? Very unlikely.
Yeah, with the way Mikel Arteta is demanding his strikers, maybe
not from what Arteta demands, from how teams are playing against Arsenal.
That's a good point. I'd say yes and no, because plenty of times I've seen Jesus running behind, but it's not going to be a barrage of chances, a barrage of opportunities to do such. We need a gunman though, and whether it's Black or Justin, I'm on it, man. We go back to when we had a Aubameyang. Like, I forgot generally, because at the time we signed a Aubameyang and we went I know the closest we had to a proven goal scorer was probably Alexis Sanchez, but I do think we miss a striker, regardless of the weather of the games. In May, he might not win the Golden Boot, but his name's going to be there. And I feel if we're trying to win a league title, big up Saka and Eddie Nketiah, but 5 and 6 goals out and out is... it's not really that. Where you look at what Salah's got, you look at what Haaland's got. We're bringing blunt knives to gunfights, really. So it's not really making sense. So I'm not too sure. Before I ask you to kind of round this up and I ask you questions what the fans ask, big up them in advance. Would you sack Arteta if we don't win the Premier League or Champions League? I'm sure this has been a question you've been asked before.
Yeah. Contract ends 2025, so probably not. I just see it out, and if by the end of that contract there's no real improvement, then I guess you got to shake hands, really. I don't really see point in sacking someone a year out from their contract being done, especially with the way the squad's been made up in terms of contracts, the dates.
I mean, if Jamie Alonso wants to come over here, then might have to see if it can happen. I can't lie, man.
So most of the contract dates are 2027. The guys that signed this summer, some of them are also 2028. So I wouldn't really be scared of a max exodus, if we want to put it in those terms. So yeah, I'd probably look around contract time.
I'm with you with that, man. To kind of wrap this up, I've got some questions for you. Big up Mr. Adlib23. He said realistic transfer targets. Yeah, trust. You could answer that. I don't know, man. Big up 2-3 though, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Man.
I don't really know.
That's what I'm
being
saying.
totally
I'm just
honest,
a content creator. You're a journalist.
yeah.
We're not in the
Like,
footballing world like that.
on the Hato stuff, like I'd probably say obviously everyone knows more likely to be summer than January.
Bring him.
But profile wise, he fits the bill.
Makes me excited. Pause. Like I want him at the club, man. yeah, I can't lie. It does.
You're so stupid.
It does, man. I like Hato. Well, Hato's FM settings like 17, left back, centre back, Dutch, Timber, chat to out. Timber, get on WhatsApp and gas this guy up. Gas him up to sign for us. Like London Live. Well, listen, resale value. I'm all for it. For what it is worth, though, if I was Hato, I don't. Obviously, his contract is kind of running out. He probably needs to sign one. I don't think there's necessarily a rush to leave Ajax because you're developing. You're in a unique position as well. So I'm not sure.
The other one, again, this is not me linking or anything, but when you look at contract and age profiles, Gertruda at Feyenoord is an interesting one. Teammate or former teammate of Reece Nelson, obviously while he was on loan there, can play right back, centre back, and in midfield. Very obviously similar attributes when I mentioned them to Timber, but if you want to say use Timber more as a left back and you need more cover for Ben White at right back, that could be a way around that situation. Especially if the way we're talking, if you want to move on from Kivior in the near future, that could be a way around that. But yeah, as for proper stuff, I think that probably comes in the summer.
It's wait and see, man. He's all someone else has said. What is his opinion on the tactical setup and what in-house solutions are available in brackets, if any? Right.
Tactical setup is interesting. I feel my big thing is or has been how quickly Arsenal move the ball. And that's improved slightly in recent weeks when we take the whole season into consideration, mainly because Erdegaard's been dropping a bit deeper. The Brighton game is probably the best example.
Norwegian captain.
But he's been doing that for a few weeks now, back to what he was doing, not just last season, but the season before. So I think that's helped. But moving forward, I guess the big thing is finding people in the right pockets. And that's where, and also not just finding people there, having people there who can make the right impact. So when you look at Havertz, this isn't me trying to slate him or whatever. Touches aren't coming quickly enough. He's not moving in relation to the ball quickly enough. That's why Smith Rowe seems to me, I could be wrong. He seems to me like someone who deserves a go.
Fabio Vieira, get fit, man. Get fit. We need it.
Well, he is fit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. For Smith Rowe, play the lad, man. Just play the lad.
Yeah.
Fabio, get fit.
So, yeah, I think if we're looking internally, Smith Rowe is the guy.
I'm with you with that, man. I'm gonna have to share my screen because there's no way I could pronounce this name, but it's that Ajax lad, the light skin you can't pronounce that, my friend. Like, I don't know if can you see?
I can't really see, no. Oh.
Let me zoom in some more.
Okay. Divine Wrench.
Yeah. The Ajax lad. What do you make of him?
Totally honest answer. I haven't really watched him, so I can't really talk about him.
I like him a lot. As the comment says here, he is similar to the way Timber kind of plays in terms of build up. I think Ajax could be an angle for us to kind of explore. But apart from that, it doesn't seem like there's anything else. Like he was linked with us in the summer and Liverpool. didn't move for whatever reason. So maybe it's one of them that there's interest, but there's other targets elsewhere. So God knows, man. My last question for you. Go on.
That's not me like being whatever. I genuinely don't.
Nah, you're just not a liar. If you don't know Donny, you don't know Donny. Like, what's the point sitting here and lying? Like,
because I know like some people will be like, oh yeah, of course you'll say that. No, I genuinely like I'd just be chatting rubbish for no reason.
What's the point lying, man? My last comment for you or opinion of yours, for that one of yours. Obviously, we've got like a week until we play Crystal Palace. What would be your prediction for it? I'm gonna go 2-1 Arsenal, man. I think it's gonna be a hairy one, but yeah.
My hope would be
3 points, but yeah.
3-1, I would hope.
3 goals with the way we're playing. But then again, goals are like buses. You don't score forever, and then there's a barrage of them.
The way Arsenal are playing, they're creating chances.
True, but you got to put the ball in the back of the
They
net,
need to fix up, basically.
And that's the only thing that I think is encouraging in that I think defensively by our own standards, I think we've dropped off, and that needs to be arrested. And I think that goes for the whole team. When I mentioned defending and attacking, it's the whole team. Our first defenders, Jesus, first attackers, Ramsdale's ever in goal.
I think with that as well, people underestimate how important those fullbacks are.
Yeah.
Obviously, fullbacks were important when it was 4-4-2 days, but even more so now. I know you probably like that statement.
Yeah, but, I mean, us fullbacks, we never get the credit. Fullback union, listen.
But if you just look, again, I know I'm bringing the Fulham game up again. It's just because that's the most recent game I was at. There was a point I remember where Arsenal's pressing structure is basically set up so that Ben White is almost playing right wing, basically. But what makes it work is everyone moves together.
Well, there's holes in the team if you don't.
Against Fulham, they weren't. So when Ben White was pushing up,
he's caught and Saka lost it. We're in trouble.
Willian literally stood still on the halfway line.
Yeah.
And got space. He didn't have to move. Like, this is the stuff that is costing Arsenal. So, hopefully, I feel that's what's costing Arsenal.
No, that's what I mean. I agree with you. I think we've just got to get over this mental block and get back to basics with how well we've been defending. I actually feel it's just the final action in the final third. Like, I mean, don't get twisted. I don't really care about how many touches and chances you're creating if you're not doing the business. Me and you have played Football Manager. There's times you're completely all over other team. You go out of cups like that, innit? And it's bare stress. That happens to me all the time. So I don't really care about it, but I would say it's literally just the final action, putting the ball in the back of the net, and sometimes shooting when you need to shoot, passing when you need to pass. Not that I can tell professional footballers about finishing, but sometimes it's like we're taking on the wrong shot. Like we're trying to lace it when we need to place it when we need to shoot. The pass is going over behind people. It's always being overhit. Like even Nelson, if I'm honest, that chance where I think Ramsdale put him in, he's trying to snake it and go for the near post, and he's had a bit of a chuckle. I'm like, I'm not going to allow you because you're my guy, but you know you need to do better in it, and the case goes for everyone, man. But this has been a fantastic live stream, man. Let people know any content you've got to come out, man. I know you've got some articles, or you surely should.
Yeah, I've got an interview coming out probably next week with someone who's out on loan at the minute.
Oh, see, I told you he's got friends in high places, folks.
And then I'm at. Well, the women's team are playing in the FA Cup this weekend. So I'm there and I'm hopefully working on something around that as well, which should hopefully be a bit more unique, but we'll see what actually goes on. So, other than that, not much else to say.
Just playing it all by ear, man. I mean, hopefully the women can go through in the FA Cup and give us something to smile about, which hasn't been the case. As usual, my guy, it's been a pleasure to be here and pick your brains on everything. Hopefully the next time we do this, it's a lot more pleasant for us to club, man. But yeah, man, make sure you're following on all the socials, people. All his links are in the descriptions. Make sure you're letting us have your thoughts on everything we've discovered. Let me let him get out of here, man. And on that note, we're out, folks, man. But he mentioned fullbacks are important to this. It's only right.
Against this right back, Charlie.
defending. I think it's like